My name is Margaret Ellison, though most people call me Maggie. I am 56 years old now, but the story I am about to tell began on a night in Las Vegas when I was 52. I practiced law for more than 3 decades, and for most of that time I believed my work and my reputation were the measure of my worth. I stood in boardrooms and courtrooms across America defending corporations that were powerful enough to buy silence, and I told myself that I was only doing my job. I thought faith was something to be displayed on Sunday mornings, not lived out on Monday afternoons. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, into a proud Southern Baptist family. My father was a Vietnam veteran who later became a deacon in our church, and my mother taught Bible study to women every Wednesday evening. I grew up with hymns echoing through our kitchen and verses written on scraps of paper pinned to the refrigerator. Yet when I left for Boston to attend Harvard Law, I shed those early convictions as though they were childhood clothes that no longer fit me. At Harvard I became sharp, driven, and quick to scoff at anyone who spoke of God as a living presence. I called religion a crutch for the weak, and I laughed when my classmates prayed before exams. By my late 40s, I was a partner at a prestigious firm in New York. I specialized in defending pharmaceutical giants and insurance companies, and I was very good at it. The bonuses were generous, the recognition constant, and I convinced myself I was successful because I was smarter and stronger than most. I would sit in church a few times a year to keep up appearances, but I did not believe in heaven or hell. If pressed, I would have said God existed somewhere far away, too distant to care about me or anyone else. On May 14, 2021, after a long day in court in Las Vegas, I stepped into a self-driving limousine designed to impress wealthy clients. It was supposed to be the future of luxury transport, a glass-roofed marvel gliding under neon lights. But halfway through the ride, the system failed. The car tore through a barrier and plunged into a drainage canal. Water rushed in, glass shattered, and I fought for breath as the cabin filled. The world narrowed to black. For 8 minutes, my heart did not beat. Paramedics called me gone. But while my body lay still, something beyond imagination began. The instant the black water swallowed me, I expected nothingness. I thought death would be silence, a cold void without thought or memory. Instead, I felt myself torn free from my body as if a veil had been ripped apart. One moment I was suffocating, thrashing in panic, and the next I was weightless, rising upward into a vast expanse that seemed both endless and near. At first, there was darkness. Not the thick and terrifying darkness of drowning, but a soft twilight that stretched like an endless horizon. I felt I was moving through it quickly, though there was no wind, no motion to measure. The darkness began to thin, and in its place came a glow, dim at first, like dawn breaking, then growing brighter until I could no longer call it light. It was living, pulsing, golden, filling me with warmth I had never known. Every fear dissolved in that glow. I realized I was not alone. There were voices, countless voices, surrounding me. They did not speak in words I could translate, but they sang as if every syllable carried truth. The sound was not loud, yet it filled me completely, as though every cell in my being vibrated with harmony. For the first time in my adult life, I understood unity. On earth, I had spent years in courtrooms where people argued endlessly, where division was profitable and truth negotiable. Here, there was no argument, only perfect accord. As the golden light deepened, shapes began to take form. Ahead of me stretched what looked like a river, but it was not water. It was liquid light, radiant and shimmering, flowing endlessly toward a horizon that glowed brighter than the sun. Souls moved upon its banks, figures clothed in radiance, their features clear and yet beyond description. I saw some embraced by angelic beings whose forms shifted like flame and crystal at once. Each encounter carried love so intense it pierced me to watch it. I kept moving, drawn upward. Soon I stood before what I can only describe as a court unlike any earthly courtroom I had ever known. Towering columns of light rose into the sky, forming an archway that seemed to breathe with life. The ground beneath my feet was like glass, reflecting both myself and the radiance above me. It struck me, painfully, that this was the true court, and all my years of practicing law had been a shallow echo of this eternal chamber. It was then that I began to see faces, faces from my past. Not in torment, but in sorrow. Families I had once opposed in court appeared before me in a vision. Mothers who lost children to defective medicines I defended, veterans denied coverage by insurance companies I protected, widows who stood trembling while I dismantled their testimony with clever words. They did not accuse me, nor did they rage. They looked at me with grief that seared deeper than any judgment. It was grief mingled with compassion, sorrow without hatred. I wanted to turn away, but the light would not let me hide. It showed me, gently yet firmly, every wound I had been part of. I realized the law I served had not been justice, it had been a tool for those with power. On earth I excused myself by saying I only followed rules, but here I saw what my choices had truly meant. The voices around me grew louder, no longer a distant harmony but a chorus that filled the chamber. It was then that I noticed something: they were not divided. On earth, Christians argued over doctrines, denominations, and pride. In this place, there was no division. Every voice was distinct, yet they blended as one. I felt shame like fire in my chest, because I knew I had lived the opposite. I had claimed faith while serving only myself, had stood in churches while mocking the very unity they pretended to hold. An angelic presence drew near, taller than any man, radiant beyond measure. Its voice was not a sound but a thought within me: "You have been brought here to see what cannot be ignored." And with those words, the chamber seemed to expand endlessly. The pillars of light grew higher, the river of living light rushed brighter, and I fell to my knees in awe. For the first time in my life, I knew what holiness meant. It was not rules or rituals. It was not judgmental stares from a congregation. It was a unity that pulsed with life, a presence that held both justice and mercy without contradiction. In that court of light, I was stripped of every defense. I was no longer a lawyer, no longer a woman with accolades and titles. I was only a soul, exposed before the truth. And then, I saw him. At first, I did not recognize him, but as he stepped from the radiance, I knew his face. It was James Dobson, a man whose name I had heard often in the news and from conservative friends, but whose work I had mostly dismissed. He was not frail as he had been in old age on earth. Here he was radiant, his presence both kind and grave. He looked at me with eyes that seemed to pierce through every mask I had ever worn. And with a voice clear and steady, he said, "You have been allowed to stand here, Maggie, because there is a warning that must be spoken. Christians do not fall because of what they face from outside. They fall because they are divided within. The greatest sin among them is false unity, pretending to be one body while tearing one another apart, while living for self and not for Christ." His words shook me, because they cut straight into the core of my life. When James Dobson spoke those words, the entire chamber of light seemed to reverberate with them. It was not just a man speaking to me, it was truth itself, echoing through the foundation of that heavenly court. His face shone, but his eyes carried gravity, like a judge delivering a verdict not out of cruelty but out of necessity. "You defended the strong against the weak," he continued, his voice tender yet unflinching. "You cloaked yourself in the law while ignoring the spirit. You lived divided, your mind chasing success, your lips occasionally mouthing prayers, your heart far from unity with God's people. And this is the hidden sin. Christians pretend to be one body, yet they live as fragments, and fragments cannot shine." At that moment, the light around me shifted, and I was shown visions unlike anything I could describe with earthly words. I saw churches filled with worshippers, hands raised, voices loud, but their hearts were not connected. Invisible walls separated them, walls of pride, of politics, of jealousy, of unforgiveness. Each person thought themselves righteous, yet the chorus was fractured, no harmony, only noise. And then I saw myself among them, standing tall in fine clothes, speaking of justice while my actions betrayed the very unity I claimed. I cried out, "I didn't know. I thought I was only doing my work." But the vision did not relent. I saw the families I had fought against in court, not in anger, but standing silently, their wounds still open. Their grief was like mirrors showing me the truth. I had chosen the side of power when I could have defended the broken. My chest burned with shame so fierce that I wished to vanish. James Dobson's voice softened, yet grew even more piercing. "The sin is not only yours, Maggie. It is the sin of the church itself. They sing about unity, but live in division. They speak of love, but withhold forgiveness. They honor Christ with their lips, but betray him with their pride. You were allowed to see this because you embodied it in your own way, and you must warn them. I fell to my knees, sobbing. Every mask I had worn as a lawyer, every clever argument, every veneer of strength, it all shattered. I was not powerful here. I was a child before the truth. The grief of what I had done pressed so heavily upon me that I thought I could not bear it. And yet, in the midst of that crushing weight, I felt something else. Mercy. The chorus of voices grew louder again, but now I understood them. They were singing not condemnation, but restoration. Their song wove around me like a garment, lifting me from the despair I thought would consume me. I felt arms around me, though no one touched me, reminding me that even in my failure, there was hope. Look, Dobson said, gesturing with his hand. The vision changed. I saw a vast field filled with light. From every nation, every background, people streamed together, holding hands, singing as one. Their differences did not vanish, but they did not divide them. They were united by love, love so real it eclipsed every petty disagreement. This, he explained, was the true body of Christ. This was what Christians were meant to be. And then his tone grew heavier again. But most of them will not see this. They are too busy with their own kingdoms, their own reputations, their own wars with each other. They do not realize that the world does not fall because of outside evil. It falls because those who should be light refuse to be one flame. My tears blurred everything. I pressed my face to the glass-like floor of the court, weeping. I could feel my entire life unspooling before me, every victory in court that had cost another family their chance at healing, every moment I had chosen silence over compassion, every time I had mocked faith while wearing a smile in church pews. And worst of all, the way I had lived fragmented, split between ambition and faith, between Sunday appearances and weekday greed. I wanted to scream that I was sorry, but the words would not come. My chest heaved with sobs too deep for language. I thought surely the next words would be my condemnation. But instead, Dobson knelt near me, his radiant form lowering to where I lay broken. His hand, though blazing with light, felt gentle as he raised my chin. Maggie, he said, voice full of both sternness and compassion, you are still alive. That is why you are here. Not for judgment, but for warning. You must tell them what you have seen. Tell them that division is their greatest sin. Tell them that unity in Christ is not optional, it is the only way to live. And tell them that love is not pretending, it is surrender. If you do this, your failure will not be the end of you, it will be the beginning. At those words, I broke. For the first time since childhood, I felt repentance, not guilt to be excused, but sorrow met with love. I confessed everything silently, my soul pouring out as though a dam had burst. I told God I was wrong, that I had lived for myself, that I had defended power when I should have defended the weak. I begged for forgiveness, though I felt I deserved none. And in that moment, mercy flooded me. The chamber of light trembled as if heaven itself rejoiced. The chorus of voices swelled, filling me with a hope so fierce it overcame my despair. My heart, which had been stone for so many years, cracked open. For the first time in decades, I felt whole. When I lifted my eyes, Dobson was still there, but now he smiled. All hope is not gone, he said. It is born again when truth is embraced. I knew then that I would never be the same. Even as James Dobson's words settled over me like fire and balm, the light around us grew impossibly brighter. It was no longer golden but pure, piercing white that seemed alive. I thought my eyes would fail, but then I realized I wasn't seeing with eyes at all. My whole being was perceiving him. And then he came. I had spoken his name countless times in half-hearted prayers, had sung hymns about him as a child, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of Jesus. He did not walk into the chamber. He was the chamber. The pillars of light, the river of living fire, the chorus of voices, all of it seemed to exist because he was present. When he drew near, every sound hushed, and the air itself bent to his glory. I fell flat on my face. My body, or whatever form I carried there, could not remain upright. Every ounce of pride, every layer of self-importance, dissolved like smoke. His presence was not crushing, but it was absolute. He did not need to announce himself. I knew with a certainty beyond thought, this was the Son of God, the Word made flesh, the one who had died and risen again. And yet, when he spoke, his voice was not thunder. It was love. "Maggie," he said, my name echoing inside me as if it had been spoken at the foundation of the world. "You have seen what division does. You have seen what pride builds and what love heals. Do you understand now?" Tears ran down a face that did not feel like flesh, yet they were real. "Yes, Lord," I whispered. "I was blind." He showed me then, not with words but with vision, how he longed for his people to live as one. I saw families fractured by bitterness, churches split by envy, nations tearing apart because those who carried his name refused to carry his heart. Then I saw the opposite, a glimpse of what could be if love truly reigned. It was more beautiful than any cathedral, more radiant than any sunrise. It was simple, ordinary people choosing humility over pride, forgiveness over grudges, kindness over judgment. It was unity, real and living. "You defended power when you were called to defend people," he said. "You chose division when I prayed that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you. But hear this, I did not let you die to condemn you. I let you come here to be changed, and to speak." I wept harder. His words cut deeper than any accusation, yet they carried no cruelty. Only truth. Truth so pure it felt like freedom. Then he touched me, or rather, his light enveloped me. In that touch was forgiveness so complete I could not comprehend it. I felt years of hardness peel away, shame lift like smoke, wounds I had buried heal in an instant. For the first time since I was a little girl singing hymns in Charleston, I felt whole. "Go back," he said. "You are not finished. Tell them what you saw. Tell them that unity is not a suggestion, it is the essence of my body. Tell them that love is not pretense, it is the only proof of faith. And remind them that I am not far. I am near to all who call on me in truth." The brilliance intensified until I thought I would vanish into it completely. My soul longed to stay, to be consumed in that endless light. But his words pulled me like a tide, and the court of heaven receded. The next thing I knew, I was gasping on a hospital bed, water spilling from my lungs, doctors shouting my name. I woke to the blinding lights of the hospital, coughing water, my chest heaving as though it were on fire. The doctors called it a miracle, but my colleagues dismissed it as luck. They told me my brain had imagined the visions in a final surge of oxygen deprivation. For weeks I wrestled in silence. In the courtroom I felt like an intruder in my own life, shuffling papers that no longer mattered. At night I replayed his words, hearing James Dobson's warning, feeling again the weight of division. I tried to tell a partner at my firm about what I had seen, but he laughed, calling it trauma-induced fantasy. The ridicule stung, but what cut deeper was the gnawing doubt inside me. Was it real? Yet every time I closed my eyes, I saw the river of living light, I heard the chorus in perfect unity, and I felt his presence near. My old life no longer fit. I knew I had to choose between going back to the woman I was or surrendering to the truth I had been shown. I could not return to the courtroom as before. The weight of what I had seen pressed me toward a new path. Within months I resigned from the firm, shocking my peers. I went home to Charleston and opened my door to those who had no voice, veterans, widows, single mothers crushed by debt. I defended them not for profit, but for love. Each case became a living testimony, each word I spoke a reminder of what Christ had commanded me, to be one, to love, to live in truth. 4 years have passed since that night in Las Vegas. I am no longer the woman who worshipped power and mocked faith. I live with peace now, though the road is humbler and quieter. I tell my story not to glorify myself but to warn. The greatest sin among Christians is living divided while pretending to be one. I was shown that love is the only proof of faith. My life is now a new beginning, and every breath I take is a chance to live the unity he revealed.